Okay, so Argentina, 1945, Nazi Germany, they've just surrendered.
Right.
And then out of nowhere, 2 German U-boats show up.
Yeah.
Officially, the story is the crews were just, you know, trying to escape.
Sure.
But, it kind of sparks this wild theory, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That maybe they were smuggling Hitler and all the top Nazis to a secret base in Antarctica.
A secret base.
I mean, there was even a book written about it.
Oh, really?
It's like this fascination with the unknown down there in Antarctica. Like H.P. Lovecraft's At the Mountains of Madness.
Oh, yeah.
These ancient alien cities buried under the ice.
It's pretty wild stuff.
Crazy. Right.
Well, it's interesting. What's fascinating is this contrast between the fictional stuff,
Right.
the fantastical ideas we have about Antarctica, and the really surprising scientific realities that we've actually found down there. Like, you have this dramatic human story of these U-boat crews surrendering, and then these imaginative tales of hidden civilizations. But the real discoveries we're going to talk about are, in a way, even more incredible.
Exactly. And that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Because the Nazi hideaway and the aliens are pure fiction.
Right.
What's really going on beneath the Antarctic ice is it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And it all started with this kind of unexpected figure.
Okay.
A Russian prince who became an anarchist.
Wow.
Peter Kropotkin.
I've heard that name.
Born into royalty, served the Tsar, spent time in the military exploring Siberia. And that really ignited his intellectual curiosity.
Yeah.
He was interested in everything.
I can imagine.
Politics,
Yeah.
geography, geology, biology.
It's really remarkable how those diverse experiences kind of shaped his thinking.
Totally.
I mean, his time observing that Siberian landscape led him to develop these theories about Ice Age.
Yeah.
Like, he was a true polymath.
Yeah.
And his radical political ideas even had parallels in his scientific thinking, focusing on things like cooperation and evolution. It's quite a journey from serving the Tsar to becoming this radical thinker.
Totally. And it was during his exile,
Okay.
after he gave up his title and he ran afoul of the Tsarist regime,
Right.
that he really started focusing on ice.
Okay.
He was inspired by this idea that pressure could turn ice into liquid deep inside glaciers. But Kropotkin took it a step further.
Okay.
He was looking at early reports from Antarctic expeditions.
Right.
This massive ice-covered continent. And he proposed something that was totally radical for the time.
What's that?
That vast freshwater lakes existed way down beneath all that ice.
Wow.
Completely isolated from the surface.
I mean, that's a bold hypothesis,
Yeah.
given the limited technology back then in the late 19th and early 20th centuries.
Oh, totally.
I mean, there was simply no way to see through miles of ice to confirm that.
Yeah.
So for many people, Kropotkin's idea probably sounded just as far-fetched as, Lovecraft's stories.
Totally. It was pure speculation. But fast forward to 1957. After the Antarctic Treaty,
Right.
the Soviets established this network of research stations.
Yeah.
And one of them, Vostok,
Vostok.
became legendary.
Okay.
I mean, this place is extreme.
How extreme.
Almost 12,000 feet in altitude.
Wow.
It holds the record for the coldest temperature ever recorded on Earth.
Oh, wow.
The researchers there, the Vostis, they were a tough bunch.
I bet.
Even their downtime had its moments.
Okay.
Apparently, a chess game once escalated so badly, it led to an ice axe attack.
Well, hold on. An ice axe attack.
Yeah, they actually banned chess for a while after that.
That's intense.
Yeah, that anecdote really illustrates the isolation and pressures of working in that kind of hostile environment.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But beyond the challenges, Vostok became this key site for some groundbreaking science.
Okay.
A central figure here is Andrei Kapitsa,
Kapitsa.
son of a Nobel laureate.
Wow.
He became really interested in the Antarctic ice sheet.
Okay.
Kapitsa's PhD research was focused on the thickness and movement of the ice. And when he analyzed aerial surveys around Vostok,
Yeah.
he noticed something really strange.
What's that?
Instead of the uneven surface you'd expect from moving ice, it was remarkably flat.
Oh, that's weird.
That was the first hint, right?
Yeah, that's a significant anomaly.
Then in the mid-1960s, Kapitsa led these expeditions to Vostok
Okay.
to conduct seismic measurements.
Seismic measurements.
It's like using sound waves like an underwater echo
Okay.
to map what's beneath the ice.
Right.
So they send these sound waves down through the ice
Yeah.
and see how they bounce back, which should reveal the thickness of the ice and where it meets the bedrock.
Makes sense.
But instead of a clear echo, he got this blurred interference.
Interference.
It's like static on a radio.
Oh.
It didn't make sense at the time.
Okay.
And then to make matters worse, there was a fire in Moscow, and it destroyed most of his data.
Oh, no.
So the puzzle of the flat ice and the weird seismic readings, they just went unsolved for a couple of decades.
Wow. It's a good reminder that scientific progress isn't always a straight line.
Yeah.
Sometimes data gets lost.
Right.
Interpretations are limited by, the knowledge at the time. And promising lines of inquiry can just fade away.
Yeah.
But then in the early 1990s, something totally unexpected happened that brought Kapitsa's research back into focus.
Oh, yeah. He was at a conference in England presenting his work on Vostok.
Okay.
And some British researchers were presenting their aerial radar surveys of the ice. And that's when it clicked for Kapitsa.
Really?
He recognized the patterns.
Okay.
These surveys suggested the ice wasn't uniform.
Yeah.
It was dense on top.
Right.
And something much less dense underneath.
Huh. That's the crucial piece.
Yeah.
You have the flat ice surface, the unusual radar readings.
Yeah.
And then Kapitsa remembered his own puzzling seismic data.
Yeah.
So he went back to Moscow, managed to recover some of his old records.
Wow.
And that's when he had his aha moment.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. He re-examined those seismic charts.
Yeah.
And he realized his mistake in interpreting the data.
Okay.
See, when seismic waves travel through different materials, they behave in different ways.
Right.
Some waves called longitudinal waves. They're like a push and pull.
Okay.
Others, latitudinal waves, move side to side.
Gotcha.
Now, water only allows the push-pull type to travel through it effectively.
Oh, I see.
And guess what?
What?
Kapitsa's data showed no latitudinal waves coming back.
Wow.
That was it.
So that means...
Proof of liquid water beneath the ice.
Wow.
Kropotkin's century-old theory, once seen as fantasy,
Right.
confirmed.
That's amazing how different lines of evidence converged.
Yeah.
You have Kropotkin's initial intuition.
Right.
Then, decades later, seemingly unrelated data from aerial surveys and seismic readings, all pointing to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
It really highlights the power of scientific inquiry and the eventual validation of these seemingly improbable ideas.
And this discovery was huge. Lake Vostok.
Lake Voss?
Roughly the size of Lake Ontario.
Wow.
The 6th largest freshwater body in the world by volume.
That's enormous.
Sitting almost 2 miles beneath nearly 12,000 feet of ice.
Unbelievable.
And it's not alone.
What?
We now know there are around 400 subglacial lakes in Antarctica.
400.
Some of them potentially isolated for millions of years.
Wow, think about that.
Entire ecosystems cut off from the surface world for eons.
It's incredible.
So the key takeaway here for you
Yeah.
is that even in a place we thought was sterile,
Right.
buried under miles of ice, we find a thriving ecosystem
Yeah.
that completely changes how we think about the limits of life.
It's a truly remarkable concept, isn't it?
Yeah.
These hidden aquatic realms existing in perpetual darkness and under immense pressure.
Yeah.
And the discovery of Lake Vostok naturally led to the next big question.
What's that?
What, if anything, lives down there?
Right.
That sparked this massive international effort to drill down and find out.
Yeah, that drilling project in the late 90s was incredibly ambitious.
I bet.
I mean, drilling through 2 miles of ice is tough anywhere.
Yeah.
But at Vostok,
Yeah.
forget about it.
Oh, yeah.
The extreme cold, logistical nightmares, equipment constantly failing.
I can imagine.
They were working in summer temperatures that barely got above freezing.
Wow. And the stakes were incredibly high.
Yeah.
Because these subglacial lakes like Vostok have been isolated for millions of years.
Right.
The scientific community was acutely aware of the risk of contamination.
Of course.
Imagine introducing modern microbes or drilling fluids into such a pristine environment.
Yeah.
The potential for skewing the results and harming a unique ecosystem was a major concern.
So the drilling was this decades-long saga, right?
Wow.
Starting way back in 1970.
Yeah.
They'd make some progress each season, then winter would hit and they'd have to pack up.
Right.
There were so many setbacks.
I bet.
Stuck drill bits, broken equipment.
Yeah.
It was a real testament to human perseverance.
And the approach to reaching the lake was incredibly cautious.
Yeah.
They didn't want to drill directly into the water.
Right.
Instead, they stopped about 400 feet above the estimated water level.
Okay.
But the ice at that depth told its own story.
How so?
It was accretion ice.
Accretion ice.
This less dense ice with layers that looked exactly like ice that freezes around large bodies of water.
Oh, wow.
It was essentially frozen lake water.
That's mind-blowing.
Right?
Humanity's first ever encounter with a lake that hadn't seen the light of day since our ancestors were swinging through trees.
It's incredible.
And this ice core ended up in the hands of a U.S. scientist, John Priscu, in Montana.
Okay.
And Prieske's analysis of that accretion ice was groundbreaking.
What did he find?
He took it to his lab, used these high-powered microscopes, and there they were.
What?
Microbes.
Microbes.
He estimated around 100,000 per milliliter of ice.
Wow.
That's how they figure out exactly what kinds of tiny creatures are living down there.
Right.
By reading their genetic code, a process called DNA sequencing.
DNA sequencing.
Which identifies the types of organisms present.
Okay.
And the sequencing revealed hundreds of different microbial species thriving in this dark, isolated world.
That must have been an incredible moment.
What?
To find this whole ecosystem where no one thought it could exist.
Yeah, and it totally changed Prieske's research focus.
Really?
Suddenly he was on a mission to find life in all the subglacial lakes.
Absolutely. It opened up an entirely new frontier in biology.
Totally.
But Prieske's findings weren't universally accepted at first.
Oh, why not?
Some scientists worried about contamination of the ice core during the drilling process.
Right.
Others felt these pristine environments should be left untouched.
Okay.
But, given the potential for groundbreaking discoveries, the drive to learn more ultimately prevailed.
Yeah, but Prieske was determined.
Yeah.
He spent years planning his next move.
Okay.
Focusing on subglacial lakes that were shallower and more accessible in Vostok.
Right.
That's how we landed on Lake Willen.
Lake Willens.
Yeah.
It was a strategic choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Relatively close to McMurdo Station.
Okay.
Meaning easier logistics.
Right.
And only about 1,800 feet of ice to drill through.
Okay.
And crucially, Prieske's team used a UV light and hydrogen peroxide sterilized drill.
Interesting.
To make sure they wouldn't contaminate the lake.
Smart.
Yeah.
And the results from Lake Willens were even more astonishing.
Really?
DNA sequencing revealed nearly 4,000 microbial species.
Wow.
And they managed to grow 13 of them in the lab.
That's impressive.
These weren't just surviving, they were thriving.
Thriving.
Part of this complex ecosystem getting energy from metabolizing things like ammonium sulfur and iron.
What's that called?
It's called chemosynthesis.
Chemosynthesis.
They were even communicating chemically.
Wow, that's fascinating. What's also significant about Lake Willens is its connection to the Southern Ocean.
Okay.
Radar and seismic data showed that its waters flow into the ocean.
Oh, wow.
Creating this interplay between life under the ice and in the deep sea.
It really highlights the interconnectedness of Earth's ecosystems, even in these seemingly isolated environments.
And then they moved on to Lake Mercer.
Lake Mercer.
Which was deeper and farther from the ocean than Willens.
Okay.
And they used this sterile robotic probe to explore.
Oh.
And even brought up mud from the lake bottom.
And that mud held some real surprises.
Like what?
Along with microbes, they found carcasses of single-celled foraminifera, shells of crustaceans.
Wow.
And even a tardigrade.
A tardigrade water bear. A water bear in a subglacial lake.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It really makes you wonder about these interconnected networks of water under the ice, potentially carrying life between lakes.
Yeah.
Or maybe these creatures have been isolated down there for immense periods of time.
It's wild.
It certainly raises profound questions about the resilience and adaptability of life.
Totally. And while these lake explorations were happening, there was another incredibly intriguing phenomenon in Antarctica that tells us about hidden water and ancient life.
Oh, really? What's that?
Blood falls.
Blood falls.
This visually striking red flow coming out of a glacier in the dry valleys.
Huh.
It looks like something out of a sci-fi movie.
Wow.
It was first spotted way back in 1912.
That long ago.
Yeah. But they initially thought it was algae.
It's intermittent, this flow of red water.
Yeah, and the color, as it turns out, isn't algae at all.
What is it then?
It's due to a high concentration of iron in the water.
Iron.
That oxidizes and rusts when it hits the air, giving it that blood red appearance.
I see the insight here.
Yeah.
Is that isolated pockets of ancient oceans can harbor unique microbial ecosystems for millions of years.
Yeah, but the big mystery was this ultra-salty water coming from a glacier so far from the ocean.
Right. How did that happen?
So the geological explanation is fascinating. Millions of years ago, the Southern Ocean extended much further inland.
Okay.
Then as the climate cooled and glaciers advanced, a portion of that ancient ocean water got trapped beneath the Taylor Glacier. Over time, as fresh water froze out, the remaining water became incredibly salty.
Oh, wow, I see.
And this super salty water interacted with the iron-rich bedrock, picking up the iron that gives blood falls its color.
Okay.
They even used radar to see channels of this briny water flowing inside the glacier.
Wow, that's really cool. And when they analyzed the water from blood falls using DNA sequencing, they found over 17 different kinds of marine bacteria.
Wow.
These microbes are adapted to the dark, salty environment, getting their energy by metabolizing sulfates.
Look.
It's like a time capsule of life from over 1 million years ago.
Yeah.
This isolated pocket of ancient ocean and the life within it.
It's incredible to think about these hidden ancient ecosystems thriving in the dark.
It is.
And it's not just Antarctica, is it?
No, it's not.
We're seeing similar things in the Arctic as the ice melts.
Right.
Take Canada's Lake Hazen, way up north.
Okay.
With increased glacial melt feeding into Lake Hazen.
Yeah.
Researchers in 2002 were looking at what was being released into the ecosystem.
Yeah.
They found bacteria as expected.
Yeah.
But then they discovered hundreds of strains of viruses in the glacial runoff.
Hundreds?
Yeah. And what was concerning was the potential for these viruses to infect local plants and animals.
Oh, wow.
A risk that increases with more melting.
That's scary. And it's not just modern viruses.
No, in the Guli ice cap in Tibet, they found 33 virus species frozen for over 15,000 years.
Wow.
Many of them completely new to science.
And the trend continues across the Arctic and Siberia.
Yeah.
Researchers have even reanimated a 50,000-year-old virus found in permafrost.
Wow.
And it could still infect amoebae.
That's unbelievable. This presents what they're calling a microbial double whammy in a warming Arctic.
A double whammy.
The migration of new species northward and the reemergence of these ancient viruses.
Yeah.
Potentially leading to more viral spillovers.
That's a real concern.
We even saw a real-world example of this in 2016 with the anthrax outbreak in Siberia. The thawing permafrost released spores from a long-dead infected reindeer.
Oh, wow.
Leading to thousands of new reindeer deaths.
Oh, no.
And tragically human illness and a fatality.
What's terrible? A plague from the past literally re-emerging from the ice.
Yeah, it highlights the resilience of these microbes in polar environments.
It does.
They can enter this state of suspended animation for millennia.
Right.
Just waiting for the right conditions to return.
Yeah, they even have these nutrient-sensing proteins that can trigger their revival.
It's amazing. And going back to the subglacial lakes, Priskew's team did this amazing experiment showing that these microbes can actually thrive by metabolizing chemicals leaching from the rocks.
Oh, really?
Ammonia, carbon dioxide, methane, hydrogen.
Wow.
Creating these self-sustaining ecosystems in complete darkness.
It's almost unbelievable to picture an entire ecosystem thriving in complete darkness.
Yeah.
Fueled by the Earth itself.
It really makes you think about the fundamental requirements for life.
It really redefines our understanding of where and how life can exist.
Yeah, and if we connect this back to the bigger picture, the discoveries of life in these extreme subglacial environments in Antarctica have huge implications for the search for extraterrestrial life.
Right.
We're learning that life can persist in conditions we once thought impossible.
Absolutely. Think about the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn.
Yeah.
Like Europa and Enceladus.
Right.
They're covered in ice. But scientists believe they have oceans and rocky cores underneath.
Right.
If life can thrive under similar conditions here on Earth, maybe, just maybe, it could exist in those alien environments too.
That's amazing.
The technologies and strategies we're developing to explore Earth's hidden worlds could be crucial for exploring potential alien habitats.
That's pretty amazing.
This raises a final provocative thought for you.
Okay.
While we often look to the stars for the possibility of life beyond Earth, perhaps the most surprising and ancient forms of life are hidden right here, beneath our planet's icy surfaces. These frigid time capsules hold secrets about the very definition and resilience of life.
That's pretty profound.
What other wonders might be locked away in these unexplored realms beneath the ice?
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining me on this deep